Hello and welcome back to the Derby Way podcast. Obviously, it's a slightly different setup for myself and Jack. We're going to be planning to do little bite-sized sort of episodes where we're going to be talking about stuff while things are a little bit uncertain at the moment. So today we're going to be starting off with Player of the Season, a little discussion about that. So Jack, did you want to sort of get us away with some of the nominations that you think are worthy of Player of the Season?
Yeah, so we've been looking at sort of around 5 players that we think are potential Player of the Season winners. So not in any particular order, but I think 5 that I would personally say have a chance and that have been particularly good this season are probably Max Bird, Wayne Rooney, Martin Waghorn, Tom Lawrence and Dwayne Holmes. I think all of them have had an impact in different ways and all deserve to be within a shout of winning the award.
Yeah, I think we also had some honourable mentions in there. I think I'll get them out of the way early. We had Andre Wisdom and Curtis Davies. I feel like, and you can chip in on this, Jack. I feel like both of them have been sort of reliable. We didn't expect Davies to be really in and around the team that much when Clark came in, because and then everything happened with Keogh. So for him to be able to come in, he's had a difficult season, but I thought he's performed relatively well considering. And Andre Wisdom's another one where he's been out of the side here and there, but he's been really reliable when called upon, whether it's in centre back or at right back, and he's given Bogle and Cocu things to think about here and there. So I think them two are 2 honourable mentions.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Davis, obviously, again, as you said, wasn't really expected to be in and around the side much, but when called upon, he's been really good. And when I think Clark was injured, he sort of took a step up and became sort of the main sort of centre back in the team. And he's sort of been in and out of the team, but again, whenever he's been called upon, he's done really well. And I think Wisdom as well. I think I personally been wanting to see him play at centre back for quite a long time. I think that's quite a natural position for him. So for him to finally have gone there and done well is great. And I think Cocu seems to quite like him as well. And again, like Davis, he's been really reliable when called upon and quite an unexpected star for us this season, to be fair.
Yeah, well, Cocu likes players with flexibility. I think you even see that with Forsyth, who's had a tricky season as well, but it's performed okay. He likes players who can play in more than one position. He likes players who are flexible, and you never really know where anyone's playing. So I think Wisdom's quite accustomed to what Cocu wants.
Yeah, I think so. He can obviously operate at centre back or right back, which is great to be versatile, and that's obviously exactly what you want from your squad.
Yeah, and I mean, going on to the squad now, you listed 5 players. Did you want to sort of run through? I think Max Bird was the sort of first one that you sort of mentioned.
Yeah, so Max Bird, obviously, he's not been in the team for too long. He obviously only came in, I think was it Wigan when he made the appearance off the bench, and he did quite well, and that sort of allowed him to break into the side. And ever since, he's just been brilliant, and he's just been getting better and better. And allegedly, he's attracted interest from Chelsea, which obviously shows just how good he's been. He's just so. I think it's possibly learnt a lot from Rooney playing beside him. He's just so confident on the ball. He's good, just great with the ball at his feet, and has been so like a calming influence in the midfield, I think, and he's had a great season so far.
Yeah, I think he's really taken advantage of not only what Rooney's been able to give him by coming in the midfield, but also, a lot of people would have been distressed a little bit when Tom Huddleston went out of the team injured.
Yeah.
But that gave opportunity for Bird, and he sort of came in. He's taken his opportunity, and I think he was identified as someone when he was 16, who would be a star growing up. But it takes someone, especially in that holding midfield role, a lot longer to develop, because you need really calm shoulders on your head. And this is the first season where he's been able to take a real step up, and especially after it was the Aston Villa away game last season where he was sort of thrown in by Lampard. That could have discouraged him a lot, but he's sort of come in this season, and he's been a really good influence in that midfield.
Yeah, and I think it just shows how good he's been, because I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying Rooney said that he thinks he's going to be playing for England at some point in his career, and that shows just how good Bird obviously is when you've got someone of Rooney's standard saying that about you.
Yeah, and I mean, going on to Rooney, that was someone you've mentioned in that 5. what's he sort of brought? I think he's not quite been what everyone expected, but he's still been good nonetheless.
Yeah, I think with Rooney, it's been he's been sort of obviously without having like bags of energy or whatever like he used to. He's sort of a different player now to what he was. I think that was expected when he came, but now he's still like pinging the passes. He's leading the team. He's still a goal threat, and I think it was sort of expected with him in the team. Everyone else is sort of up to their game, and I think there's players that you can really see that with. Like I'd say, like someone like Dwayne Holmes, he appeared to have really like upped his game since Rooney's come in, and I think he's just had a great effect on the team. Not just through his own performances, but through helping other players perform as well.
Yeah, I think there's also an element of that sort of Mason Mount factor that we had last season, and sort of bear with me on this point. It's sort of far fetched, but he Mount made players better around him because of how often he was sort of man marked, and we've had sort of the same with Rooney, and that would open up space for someone like a Wilson, who we didn't expect him to be quite the star he was last season, top goal scorer as well for us. He teams have been trying to mark Rooney out of the game, and in turns given space for Bird, for Holmes, for other players to play better. So he just sort of has this aura around him as well. But like you say, he hasn't got that bags of energy still, but he's still got that quality there, and you never lose that as a footballer. So
Yeah, I agree. Like I think he's sort of turned out to be a fantastic signing. He's not just like had the hype before he came. He's completely lived up to it, and the impact he's had has been probably even more than I personally would have expected. And I think he's proven a great bit of business, and I'm sure he'll continue to be.
yeah, I agree with that. Sort of moving on slightly from that, another player, Tom Lawrence. Bit of a rocky start of the season to say,
Yeah.
but he has performed on the pitch, hasn't he?
Oh yeah, he's got. I think that moment sort of, or that sort of time has sort of helped him grow a little bit as a player, because this season's been his highest goal scoring season. I think he's scored 9 goals. I think the previous 2 seasons he'd scored like 6 and 7 or something, and he's also got 4 or 5 assists I think as well. So he's sort of started to get more involved in goals, and I think that's something which he'd been lacking before. And he also appears to sort of be enjoying his football quite a lot more. I think we've seen like a smile on his face a bit more when he's been playing before the break in the season. We saw a smile on his face quite a lot more when he was playing, and that's obviously what you want to be seeing from your players.
Yeah, I think he's been trying to get more involved as well. There's less of that sort of shying away from the ball. I think he's wanted to get on the ball, wanted to drive at players, wanted to sort of get shots away and score goals. He's always been capable of it. It's just been inconsistency, and this season we've seen a lot more of that. He's changed games. I mean, I think it was the Swansea away game. He really changed the complexion of that.
Yeah.
The Huddersfield game at the start of the season. We can list so many more, but he's been a really good player this season. I think it's difficult when a player is, the jury's out on a player, especially this fan base. It's always really difficult to come back from that, but he's done his best, and I think I'd like to see more of that under Koku. Whether we play the remaining 9 games or whether that's next season, you hope he'd live up to that and continue improving on his game, because he is still a decent asset to this club.
Yeah, I fully agree. Like, I think there's a reason why Koku decided to keep him and he loaned out Mason Bennett. I think it's because he sees that Lawrence has really got something to offer to the team, and even if Koku decided he didn't want him, I think Lawrence is still valuable to the club. Like, I think you could get a decent transfer fee for him if you sold him, but I think Derby are better off having him than not having him. Like I know he sometimes his performances aren't quite up to scratch, but it's just when every few games he can put in like a really, really good performance. And I think we've seen that with those like Huddersfield and Swansea type displays. And I think it's just about getting him to sort of put those performances in more consistently. And once he does that, he'll be a top championship player.
Yeah, I think I think that's actually what frustrates fans more than anything, is that he has those performances in his locker, and then he comes out and drops them 1 in 5, 1 in 10, and I think that's what frustrates people more than
Yeah.
anything. Is that it's not the fact he's playing poor; it's the fact that he plays well on an inconsistent basis, and he has that ability to play well, but he just doesn't do it often enough. But I think on the same hand, he is a championship player, and we've seen that he's at that level now. It's then trying to get to that next level. You know,
Yeah.
Wilson was similar, but just more consistent. He scored 21 goals.
Yeah,
That is the
exactly.
only difference I think between Lawrence and Wilson. It's just that consistency.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think with Wilson as well, he would perhaps not be playing particularly well, but he would have the ability to just go and like score an absolute worldie. I think Lawrence has that as well, because I saw something the other day. It was like he only, I think, in the top 5 divisions in Europe and England's top 4 divisions, Lawrence has scored the second most goals from outside the box this season, behind Messi. So that really proves he's sort of got the ability, and it's just about sort of being more consistent. And if he can score more goals from inside the box as well, then he'd be an even more sort of complete player in terms of his goal scoring.
Yeah, and talking about goal scorers, we'll go on to the next candidate, Martin Waghorn. Um, an odd season for him, but the front runner for many.
Yeah, he's scored, what is it, 12 goals I think this season, which isn't a bad return. Like I think a lot of his performances have been pretty good. I think he's obviously competing with Martin and Marriott for that sort of main striking spot. He's sort of held the main sort of starting spot for quite a lot of the season. I think the reason is that why that is because he's sort of almost a bit of a mould between Martin and Marriott to a point, because he's obviously sort of got a bit of speed, he's got a bit of strength, and he's able to hold up the ball. And I think that's probably what Koku likes about him. And he has obviously got an eye for goal, because we've seen him score a lot of goals, and I think he's definitely deserves to be in with a shout of winning player of the season award this season.
Yeah, you're right. He has got 12 this season. I think the thing that maybe frustrates more people is the fact he should have, upwards of 15 at least this season. I think that's what frustrates people. You see, I'm just trying to think of some chances now. The Stoke one, he was on for his hat trick. It was a good save, to be fair.
Yeah.
But there's a couple games where
There was one against Barnsley as well. I think it was really early on when he was played through and he just hit it straight at the keeper. It's the one-on-ones that are the main sort of issue. I think he's missed quite a few one-on-ones. I don't know why that is, but a lack of
Yeah.
composure maybe at times.
Quite possibly, but I think when you take away that side of things, he's had a really good season considering he gets deployed out wide right sometimes. Sometimes he's up top, and he is that middle ground between Marriott and Martin as a player. He doesn't quite have the hold-up ability of Martin, but he's not as slow. He's got more of that off-the-shoulder ability that Marriott possesses. So he's had a good season, and I think he's been a constant for Philip Cocu, and you can kind of see why when you guess an 11. Maybe one of the only players that you could guess in that 11 that Cocu was going to start would probably be Martin Waghorn.
Yeah, he's clearly a player that Cocu rates highly, and I think last season under Lampard, Waghorn had quite a strong season as well. Like he was, even when he was being sort of forced to play out wide a lot, which probably isn't exactly where he wants to play. I think last season as well, he had a great effect when he came into the team, and this season, whether it's out wide, whether he's playing up front, he'll always give everything for the team, and I think that's exactly what manager wants in a player. So I think that's exactly why he's being given the playing time that he would probably want.
Yeah. So on to our final candidate of the shortlist, Dwayne Holmes, who has probably sparkled the most before his injury, sort of setting games alight with some of his skill at times. What's your thought on Holmes? I know you rate him quite highly.
Yeah, I think he's again. Last season he wasn't he didn't appear to be like a player that was going to go and do what he's done this season. I think he was, because I remember against Leeds in the playoff semi-final second leg, he obviously got brought off after like 42 minutes or something, and I was re-watching that game the other day, and I was like, shocked at how much Dwayne Holmes has improved, because in that game he was getting like barged about. He was like misplacing passes. He was losing virtually every 50-50 he was in. He was getting tackled every time he tried to run with the ball. Whereas now he seems to just have so much confidence when he's playing. Like, he's got the ability to like turn players, dribble past players, pick out passes, and he just seems to be playing with so much confidence. And I think it's almost coincided with Rooney coming into the team. His run of form has.
Yeah, he sort of had this ability to take on players, and I didn't think we have many in that squad who would be able to do that. He was able to drift past them, and his centre of gravity, he is a small lad compared to the rest of the team.
Yeah.
But his centre of gravity is fantastic. He was able just to take players out of games and sort of create the space. And I think that's, nobody quite expected that of Holmes considering last season, and I think considering the price tag on his name. Especially when last season you had Mount, Wilson, Waghorn came in for a bit of money. 250 grand midfielder from Scunthorpe was never going to be the highest of people's, hype list, and yet he's been a fantastic bargain, in my opinion, and he's had a fantastic season. And who's to say that if he didn't get injured and he carried on that form, then he might have been, the front runner for player of the season in everyone's mind.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. Like, I think he even still probably is right up there for me now in my thought process behind like who's the player of the season. One performance I sort of look back on with him, I think it was Barnsley. He was just unbelievable. I think, was it that game where Jason Knight scored 2 goals, or was that Charlton? It was one of those two. But yeah, he was absolutely like unbelievable, and I just remember that pass he played to Max Bird when Max Bird then crossed it into Knight. That was a beautiful pass, and I think that was sort of the game that sort of began his run of form in the team. And I think he really fits sort of Koku's style of play, just because he's just so like versatile. Like, he can play like sort of in the centre of midfield in a 2. He can play out wide. He can play as a 10, and I think that's obviously like a fantastic thing to have. I mean, he's even played at right back before this season, so.
Yeah, I completely agree with all that, and it's sort of a shame that the injury came when it did, when he was in such good form, and it would have been amazing to think what he could have done and what he could still do if this season does go ahead. With those 9 games, who knows when he comes back? Who knows when Bielik comes back? Who knows? There's so many more possibilities within that. But yeah, I'm gonna have to ask you to make a decision now. Who is your player of the season out of the 5 that we've mentioned? Hit me. It's quite a tough decision, to be fair. I think you've got to be thinking probably over the whole season, because a lot of those players have sort of had like a good sort of half season, like with Holmes, with Bird, with Rooney. They've all sort of been good for half the season. So I think my player of the season would probably be, I would say Waghorn. I think he's been a consistent performer. He's probably one of the players that's played the most games out of everyone this season, and I think he's just had a great effect overall. And I think he would probably, over the whole season, is probably deserving of the award, in my opinion. Yeah. Shall I sort of
what
reveal
about
mine?
yourself?
Yeah, I think my player of the season, with no surprise, is going to have to be Martin Waghorn as well. He's been the one constant in a Philip Koku 11. He's he's been a goal scorer, and as much as people complain that he hasn't scored as many goals maybe he would have liked to, that doesn't matter. I think for me he's been fantastic wherever he's been deployed.
Yeah.
He's improved as the season's gone on, but he's had a more complete season than I think some of the other players have. As you mentioned, some of them have had half seasons, whereas Waghorn's probably been good for more than that. So for me, I'd probably have to agree and say Martin Waghorn's my player of the season as well. So far, who knows what the next possible 9 games bring us?
Well, yeah, I mean, still only 5 points off the playoffs as well, so there's still a lot that could happen.
Tempting fate. So I think that'll be where we wrap up this one today. So thank you very much for joining me, Jack. We'll hopefully have more sort of bite-sized podcasts to come as the weeks go on and as the
Yeah.
weeks progress. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll hit you with the next one.